Thank you for being with us for another episode of Family Unlock. I would like to start this episode with a disclaimer. This conversation can and may be triggering. Hi, I'm Erika.
And I'm Sean.
And we are the Blanchards. This podcast is created to be a safe place where we discuss topics regarding faith, love, family, marriage,
and everything in between through the perspective of an interracial blended couple focused on ministry
and mental health. No topic is off limits. We're about to have adult conversation through the eyes of a Latina scholar, life coach, mother, and wife.
Along with the perspective of a Black king, engineer, entrepreneur, father, and husband. We're about to take brown and Black excellence to a whole new level.
Family Unlock starts now. Trigger warning. We will be discussing mental health, trauma, symptoms of depression, and anxiety. If at any time you are feeling uneasy, unsafe, please feel free to stop the episode and reach out to us or a trusted loved one. If there are any feelings of uncertainty or overwhelm and thoughts of unaliving yourself come up, please call 988 on your phone for an immediate crisis line.
Let's invite this conversation in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you, Lord. We thank you for another day, Lord. We ask that you just continue to keep your hand upon us as we discuss these topics of depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, mental illness, Lord. We ask that you can just have your spirit with us to guide us through these conversations, Lord. We also know that there may be someone on the line that is touched or impacted by this conversation, Lord. We ask that you can be with them, Lord. Provide them with the resources that is required to get the help that is needed. And we just want to be able to have this conversation blessed, Lord. We thank you for actually utilizing us, Lord, pouring into us and having a conversation that could be difficult for many. We thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for being with us for another episode. I want to say hi, baby. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing well. How are you doing, babe?
I'm doing okay. It's 2 days after Thanksgiving, and Sean and I, after Thanksgiving, our amazing Thanksgiving party, get together. We started to talk about feelings that come up, and even through the good times and the joy, there's always a time where you stop and you reflect on, but why can't this be this way? And we thought about not just our family and, things that we go through, but we started to think about others in the community that are struggling. And the silent struggle that many of us have and don't share is what, for me, I find, scary, and scary for them, but familiar to some of us. And just to share a little bit about my own mental health, I'm very open to a lot of things that I've dealt with in my life and the traumas I've endured and symptoms that I have. I was diagnosed after having the twins, with depression and anxiety. And a lot of my anxious thoughts came from post-traumatic stress. And so that was a little tricky because I started to then notice a lot of symptoms I would endure that I didn't even know I had. And one of them was, if I'm triggered or overstimulated or something is said or something happens, I shut down to where I just kind of like disassociate, and someone could be talking to me, and the best way I can describe it is they're talking and all I hear is wah, 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 and I
like you're underwater, right?
Yeah, like I can't make out what is being said or what I'm even feeling in that moment. And it doesn't have to be anything specific, and I can't describe it. I don't know why it happens. All I know, one is either fight, get angry, push, hit, or I just start, disconnecting.
Yeah.
And I just want out. Like wherever I'm at, I need out. I want out.
Mm-hmm.
And no one would would expect that because I'm always so bubbly, or I'm just smiling. And then there's times that I don't know what it is. Just, it could be something as simple as going down an elevator, and the quiet, it reminds me of a situation. And then I just like, what is that? What is that? What am I feeling? And my whole body shuts down.
Yeah.
And so that made me think about how many people are struggling specifically during the holidays because one, we're supposed to be jolly and happy. And when those kind of emotions are forced on you, you feel gravitated toward the isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing family members that trigger those responses, those body responses of like, this is what you did to me, or you can just walk around and pretend this didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you're living your life and I'm still struggling with what happened.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all of a sudden I could be sitting there talking to someone and then all of a sudden I think of, why couldn't this be like this all the time?
Yeah.
Or I wish this person was here.
Yeah.
And so with that, I tried to reach out to my kids and my husband, and because they've endured so much different, in seasons in our life, there's been so many different struggles. And, I just make sure that they're okay. And I'm hoping that this conversation will give others, the tools and the techniques that can be easily used to help someone. Because sometimes you don't know how to help, or sometimes you don't even recognize it,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes you can be foolishly uneducated and think that the person is just mean or obnoxious or in a bad mood or doing something that is not their normal state.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes the judgment, which becomes even more isolating for the person that's dealing with, the symptoms of depression and anxiety and trauma. So, with that said, after our wonderful get together with our family that we had so much fun, sometimes, there's a saying that the enemy will come right when you least expect it and you're having such a good time. And here he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And unfortunately, that is something that happened for my husband. And he found out some news that was hard. I would say it was shocking and it was hard to hear. And to keep the integrity and the privacy of everyone involved, who we won't mention names or the specifics, but I do want to narrow in on the vulnerability that you must have felt and how that was for you.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. I mean, Erika knows I don't kind of express my emotions, at least a sense of vulnerability too often. I mean, she's probably the only one who really knows me in a vulnerable state. But as I got older, sometimes in life you start to reflect on different things and certain stuff, certain traits, certain situations or will arise that you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, what is that? Why does this particular thing keep coming up? So, we were enjoying our holidays. And like I said, I found some information just, through just about my childhood that kind of really makes you reflect and think. It kind of highlighted certain things that, that I was like, oh, wow, this is why I do this. This is why I can disassociate. This is why, I'm isolated. This is why I have a tendency to feel comfortable with being by myself. And it's not just from childhood, it's just, in general. Like my thing is to almost go within myself. I'm an introvert by nature, but to kind of just go within myself and, figure out. And I realized like that's, that was kind of a safety net for me when I was a kid, right? Just to go within myself and any issues or anything that may cause a stressful situation, I can kind of do that. And that's just how, I've been able to handle certain situations. So as I've gotten older, I realized, it's not healthy for myself. It's not healthy for my relationship or my marriage. It's not healthy with my relationship with my kids. Because this is the one thing that I notice about them is that I see a lot of me in them, good, bad, or indifferent. So when I see certain traits that are exhibited, that are a reflection of kind of like things that I do, it causes a sense of concern because I don't want them to be able to experience it. And God willing, they won't experience, in any of the things that I've experienced. But it's very interesting to be able to, reflect back and think of, these traumatic events. So as we were saying before, kind of heard some stuff this past weekend that, really caused me to reflect, and caused me to, there was a sense of disappointment. And so as men, we don't typically address those issues. We tend to bury it.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to say, oh, okay, I'm just going to push through and I'm going to muscle through. But some of these things, you can't do that. And to be honest with you, some of these things, I don't want to do it. I don't want to stifle who I am and put on a mask or a facade that this is what manhood is and this is what it is to, you shouldn't show your emotions. You shouldn't be this. You should be emotionless. You should just bottle up and suck it up. That's not healthy. It's not healthy for yourself. It's not healthy for the people that surround you. So you need to be able to address that in whatever, viewpoint that is, but at least you need to be address it in a constructive way. And so what I've been doing is just kind of self-reflecting. I'm glad that I do have a support system that I can have these conversations with, of course, but sometimes it's hard to hear, and I think that's kind of what I've been doing is just really reflecting, really trying to pinpoint how I feel. I think that's hard because it can be a conflicting. You can go between anger to disappointment to uncertainty to back to anger.
Yeah.
But, and it's just a wave of emotion. So I'm trying to navigate that through the best of my ability. Try not to harness a sense of hate, And he was like, oh, you shouldn't hate anybody. Yeah, you shouldn't. But when you're navigating these emotions, that comes up. And it comes up to, you're trying to deal with this. And so, right now, I'm kind of, like I said, I'm trying to navigate these emotions. But in the meantime, I'm also trying to be able to still be able to be a husband and be a father and be all these things while I'm trying to figure out who I am. So that's kind of what I've been dealing with.
Wow, that was nicely said, babe. And as a wife, like, how do you support that? And I'm very encouraging when it comes to sharing your emotions and how you feel and the kids. And I could always remember a conversation I had with a previous friend that we had shared with thoughts about our husbands. And one of the things she said was, at some point you have to just realize men are idiots. And I was so taken back by that because I was thinking, what? My man's not an idiot. And I felt like, how could you say that when you're a boy mom? Like, we're raising men. And if you subconsciously feel like that, then how are you handling times when they're expressing their feelings? Because you're thinking, oh my God, you're an idiot, And you know me really well, babe. And I'm very, I like to see the authentic side of people. I want to see that what I see here, you're going to be the same when I walk away from this conversation. So when I'm not around you, you're going to express yourself in the same kind, gentle way. So when I hear you speak like this, I think, then what is all this stuff that you say on the outside of how amazing this is? Because this person is, or how amazing, this life you have when you're saying these things behind their back, right? And so I thought, well, the best way to, I guess, encourage that is to educate, right? Like for me, like our men are not stupid. They just are not. I truly feel like they're not provided a safe space to
be vulnerable
and to say how they feel and to even articulate it, because we're taught to shut down whenever a man says anything because the conversation becomes too complex, right? And a man needs so much more time to process what's happening because you're using a side of your brain that you're not initially taught to use. And I think about that with you because, God works so wonderfully and he is so precise and perfect in his timing, because just a week before this happened, I was saying like, what happens? Because I noticed that when you're too stressed, you disconnect, like you disassociate and you don't know. It's just like this wall comes up, and it's not like you don't become mean or aggressive or anything like that, but you become very emotionless.
Yeah, I kind of disassociate because it feels like, we have this conversation and how we address stressful situations are totally different, right? You're kind of like, hey, balls to the wall, let's go. Like, let's go. Let's just do it. We just power through it. It is what it is. And my mind doesn't process things in that manner. It's like, okay, especially when it's like, okay, figure it out now.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of freeze up because my mind is almost processed. It's kind of like a computer buffering, like you were saying before.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting stuck. It's spinning because I'm trying to process, okay, what's the best direction? And then what happens is you overanalyze it, right? You're overanalyzing the
Mm-hmm.
situation. And so that happens a lot with me. And so there's times that I can get stuck in a situation, and it's not that I'm just like diverting the responsibility over to you, but it's almost like I'm stuck. I'm trying to find the right solution. And I know that's been a cause of a lot of, conflict, not just some of the conflict, and I feel like some stuff has been answered this weekend as to, why I kind of am like that. And you're trying to figure it out as well. You're trying to navigate these waters as well. And I think for most men, just to touch base on something that you were saying earlier about how men are men have a lot of issues, and this may be general. Some guys may not feel the same way, but I tend to believe with a lot of the guys I speak with, this is kind of what it is. You are groomed to be emotionless. You are taught to suck it up at a young age. You're taught to suppress these emotions and suppress anything that can be considered weakness. And so there's times when you're in a relationship with someone that you love, and they're like, okay, I want you to open up to me and express to it. And in some cases, they don't know how to. They're like, what do you mean open up? I'm open. This is as open as you're going to get. Like, this is who I am. And so when some people, especially with women, when they're trying to pull it out of them, it becomes in an area of frustration because we're like not understanding what more do you want? What are you trying to pull out? And we're like, we want you to be emotional. Well, we don't know any other emotion.
Yeah.
The
Wow.
emotion is either to cut it off and be emotionless, or is to be angry.
It's truly like happy or sad.
Yes.
Happy or mad. There's no
gray.
Frustration, or there's frustration, there's irritability, there's like so many different emotions, right? That you can pinpoint, like on that, like we give to our clients. So how are you, especially to children, right? How are you feeling? And we give them this emotion, like little face.
Yeah.
And you pick what you're feeling, but we still have to explain to them what that feels like. And I think that, to be honest, not just as a clinician, right, but as a wife and a boy mom, I think we will say, and I think especially women of, that of faith and who go to church, we will say, like, I give my husband that safe space, right? But the safe space doesn't take 30 minutes. It takes like 6 months, because it has to be consistent. Because that's what I do notice about men. It has to be consistent. If it's not consistently there, they will default to that one emotion.
Yeah. And I would, consistency is extremely important, but this is even more important, is that when there is a sense of vulnerability and you have got me to open up, and the floodgates are open, right? And you're expressing how this man is expressing how he feels, and he's been stifling and stifling and stifling, and it comes out. If this conversation comes up again and it is weaponized, most men will shut that emotional door down, because now what should have been a safe space, it is no longer safe. I can be here and I can love you through a lot of stuff, but I will not trust that you can handle this emotion. And for most men, that is what they deal with. And I want to say this, it is not a competition. It is not a competition as to who's dealing with more stuff, and like, well, I deal with this and this and that, so I have right to be emotion. And he deals with this and that. It's not that. If you are dealing with emotion and you're a woman and you're dealing with this emotion, you have every right to feel what you feel. You have every right to be where you're at in that emotional state. And as a man, he has the same thing too. But he's trying to navigate, how can I be emotional and be in a safe space with my significant other without defaulting to anger and violence, or to default to isolation. And that is the struggle as men that we face, is that I want to be open and I want to be an open partner and an open book, but I also am afraid that if I open up and if I express this vulnerability, is going to be used against me in some in some fashion. And so I think that is something that should be thought about, because I know for a fact a lot of men battle that.
Wow, that's powerful. And so correct me if I'm wrong. I'm hearing like in those times, those opportune times when you are sharing and you're in that space of vulnerability,
Mhm.
right? You're in that space of, it must feel like odd, right?
Mhm.
Weird, like a feeling of uncertainty. You don't know what to feel, how to feel, what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so you're feeling these feelings, and maybe there's feelings of like wanting to cry or not knowing exactly what is happening. So that makes you feel, for lack of a better word, is like less of a man.
Yes. Weak.
And right. Okay. Weak. Perfect. Right. We're weak. And so then if we are listening to that time, right, of your vulnerability, we then, if it does come up again in conversation where it feels weaponized, now we're emasculating who you are as a man. Because I know you and I, we talk about that, and that's never my intent, right? My intent is never to emasculate you. And I've told you that, but it has to be repetitive, right?
Yeah.
Because you can certainly say that you've never come across a situation where my friends have ever made you feel like I've told them your secrets, right? There is times where I've shared, I think I've shared, I'm very particular with people who I've shared my, stuff that we're going through or what I've done. I mean, what I'm dealing with. And I have shared one time that, where you and I were fighting, and it was about, I didn't feel that you were respecting me. Right. And, it took us a good couple months for me to get back on track because I felt so hurt.
Yeah.
Right. Other than that, where we reached out to friends for help, other than that, I'm hoping you can say that I'm not someone who just kind of talks about your bad spots or your what annoys me of you. Right.
Yeah. I don't think you share any information with like your friends. I think you have people who are your confidants, right? Who you're also trying to figure out how to navigate this. Because like you said, we come from two different backgrounds, two different ideologies. Even though we've been together for over 10 years, married for over 10 years, we're still learning each other at different stages in our lives. Right. And I think that's another thing, is that I'm still learning my wife, even though I've been with her for, forever, since 14 years, we've been together. So I'm still learning her, and I'm learning her at every stage, and what how she is now is not how she was 5 years ago or even 2 years ago. Right. So you're constantly learning that. I think with me, like, and I can only speak for myself, my thing is, I trust and believe that, we're private people, so we don't really divulge too much information.
Right.
But my thing is, if we were to ever get into strong fellowship, I use the quote, strong fellowship.
Yeah, that's what it was called. Yeah, it was fellowship.
It is strong fellowship. If we ever got
intense fellowship.
there we go, intense fellowship. If we ever got into some intense fellowship, that it wouldn't come up later, within that intense fellowship as to, oh, you did this, so now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna bring it up here, and I'm gonna use it to be a weapon against you, or to do this and that.
Right.
Because now what happens is, all that vulnerability that I felt and that openness that I felt, all of a sudden that door gets closed, because now I'm like, oh, you brought that up. And even if you brought it up in anger, even if you brought it up in frustration, I'm not using you as, oh, you did this. I'm just saying it as an example. It's very easy to cut that off, because now we no longer feel safe. And I can be here, and I can be present, and I could be everything, but it would be very difficult for me to want to open up that door again, because I feel like now is going to be utilized against me. And it's not just a really a man thing, it's a person thing. It is really a person thing. If you tell me something, and and you're being very vulnerable, and then I come back in an argument and I use it against you, you're going to be like, I'm not telling you nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it is. And even though I'm speaking from the perspective of a male, it's just a human thing. You don't want, something that you said in confidant to the person that you love, dearly, that's going to be weaponized and used against you. And I think for most men, they struggle with that. they do struggle with that.
You know, I can attest to that. I can say, well, I can say that I've been a part of conversations where friends have, you know, expressed their frustration with their husbands, and I would remind them like, "Let's do your dude." You know, like
Exactly.
chill. Because out of anger, I have no problem being that safe place for you to, you know, discuss sharing. But I'm also going to remind you that this is your partner, you know, and like where I come from, we're like, this is your dude, right? This is your man. Like you better not, you know, say bad things.
Yeah, you don't
I'm
want
trying to say it in a
you don't want to dog them
non-vulgar
out,
way.
right? You know what I mean? You know what
In
I
a
mean? Like
non-vulgar way.
you essentially want to. It's okay. Like venting is okay, especially if it's with a conflict. Man, you know, he did this and he did that and just made me feel this way. You're like, girl, I understand.
But
You know,
does everybody need to know?
no,
You know what I mean? Like
no,
that's what
yeah, everybody.
but and I understand too that you and I are very private people, and I only share certain things with certain people. But I also want to say this: like, there's not a lot to share either. Like, we're private, but we don't have a lot of conflict because we try to have these safe spaces. And so we're bringing this up because, you know, I just wanted to ensure that piece, that the consistency of allowing a safe space, the consistency of sometimes just learning and listening. And we don't have to talk, and we don't even have to question too much, because I know when I start questioning you or trying to go deeper with you, or even, you know, with Eric and Jessica, because they're older, you guys are kind of like, okay, stop. I'm not a client.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't need your therapy right now. I need my mom, or I need my wife. And I think we have to be very careful. And I think it's wonderful that people feel, especially women, feel that they have a bachelor's degree in psychology or a bachelor's degree in social work, and that they can provide these therapies to their friends and family. But the fact is there has to be specific tools. If not, you can open up something that can be damaging to the well-being of the person sharing.
Yeah.
And that has to be very, you have to be very careful with that. And that's the only concerns I have with people who watch these TikToks and now they think that they're gurus, because you can really open up a Pandora's box, to say, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of go along with that, right? That you're not ready for.
Yeah.
Because you're not equipped, you know? And then what if your husband or your friend or your child wants to come back to that? They want to come back to share, like, this is what happened to me, or this is what I saw, or actually, this is what I remember. And you're dismissing it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the capacity to hear it. As much as you think you do, there is so many ways to shut down a conversation and you don't realize you're shutting it down. There's so many ways that you can respond, and it's so judgmental, right? Like, we'll talk about, for example, Neil, right? When Neil says, I went to go try to change the TV, and my dad and Gianni said, hey, I'm watching that. Just wait a second. He came in here and he saw, I'm feeling very judged. And I was like, whoa, you know, from that, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, because I feel like I'm being judged because the one thing I want to watch, they're not interested in. So they're telling me that what I want to watch is dumb. And I was like, whoa. You know, like,
And
or maybe they just want to wait until their show is over.
And he didn't manifest this all in his head. And you're like, well, wait a minute.
That was a whole conversation. And that's why there's so many policies, right, in place, that you do not provide therapy to family. You don't provide therapy to friends. You don't provide therapy to loved ones, or especially your partner, because you can't help but take things personally.
Yes.
You can't help but try to direct them into what you want them to do. It's just human nature. And because of, thankfully, that skill set and that experience, I understood, like, my husband needs this space. As much as I didn't understand what this shutting down was, I knew that it wasn't beneficial for him. And I knew, and it doesn't matter to me, like, if he wants to share with me or not, because I've told him that I need you to share with someone. I need you to call Marcus. I need you to call Pastor Ray, because I know that you're very connected with them, because it breaks my heart that you had for maybe, and I can get emotional with it, that you had maybe a year with your dad, you know, the closeness to try to, connect with him. And he was for I want to say at least 2 years, he was trying, and he did a great job of connecting and guiding you when you needed a mentor badly,
Mm-hmm.
because around that time, we were getting diagnoses for, our parents and stuff, and we're losing these people that we once had, and he stepped up, and it breaks my heart that you only got that for 2 years,
Yeah.
and so if it's not going to be me, then I want you to trust someone. And I'm not trying to provide therapy for my husband. I'm trying to make sure, because we've said, let's go to therapy, which we have. We go to
Yeah.
couples therapy to ensure that we are communicating effectively
Yes.
in our way, right? And we have a mediator for that, because I know how this family runs. I know how I'm the manager of this household.
Yes.
So for me to expect you to understand what we're supposed to do without me directing you on how to do it, right? Like, which one do you want, the red roses or the pink roses? And I'm like, pick the pink ones, pick the pink ones. And then, like, I'm not really allowing you to lead then if I'm telling you what to pick, right? So in that sense, I'm saying, for me, I want the best for my husband. I want him to be the man he's always wanted to be. Like, I ask him to write down the kind of father, the kind of husband, the kind of man he's always dreamed of every year, because every year a person changes. And maybe it'll be every 6 years, because at one point we're going to be 50 and we're not going to know what 50 looks like, but what does it look like for us? You look at The Rock, I look at J-Lo, and I'm like, this is what I know what I want, right? Yeah. So we have to ensure that we're doing that for each other, but for the best of you, not for the best of me, because there's no way that I'm going to stifle your growth because I want you to be a certain man.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to be as women, to be really careful with our men, to ensure that their growth is valued and expressed and important to us.
Yeah.
Because it could, as moms, sometimes we're like, I don't need you to be the man right now. I need you to be my partner. I need you to change a diaper. I need you to do this or that, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. And that it's so important that you said that, because you have to, as men, we have to learn how to pivot. And at least with me, I know I struggle. Bishop T.D. Jakes said this best. He said, some people get lost in the turn, right? They get lost in the turns of life. And so if something has not scheduled or not planned and it happens, it throws me, because I'm like, I've mentally prepared for this particular thing. And so
for the consistency.
For the consistency. Yeah. And so when it changes or turns, it really does bother me. And I may be like, oh no, it's fine, it's okay, but it does. It's, I have to kind of recompute.
Yeah, what's funny? You're like, oh, it's fine, but somehow we start going back to how we were, or whatever changes that I suggest. He's like, sure, and then within like 30 minutes, he's like, we're like right back to where we started. Like,
and it's not intentional. You know what I mean? It's not like
it's
on purpose.
It's familiar.
It's familiar, and so being able to navigate that is important. But I would like to suggest that even though, we're kind of mentioning about, be supportive to your man and all this stuff, I think that same thing needs to happen on both sides, right? I think you have to be able to, if this is the person that you love and this is the person that you want to be with, right? And you want to, go this journey in life with, you have to be able to learn to get as much skill set as you can to be that person that they need, not necessarily that you want to be. You have your own wants, desires, and needs, but I'm trying to learn to be the man that my wife needs and be the leader that my wife needs and that my kids need. And so it's about, self-reflection. It's about unlearning a lot of bad behavior. It's about allowing my kids to be able to cry and not chastise them because, hey, you need to be a man, you need to suck it up. There's some times that you can correct them. It's like, this ain't really a crying offense. You know what I mean? You just being a baby at this point. But there's other times that you can get it out. And then you can tell them how to express themselves and give them the tools to be able to express how they feel. And I don't want my kids to be emotionless, and I don't want my kids to be, because I have found myself in the past being like, stop crying. Why are you crying all the time? They have a right to do that. Just because you show your emotion doesn't mean that you're a sucker. Doesn't mean that you a punk. It doesn't mean any of that. And in today's society, it will tell you that that's exactly what it is. But most of these fools out here don't even have a father figure to go with anyway. And this, you speaking from a person who did not have that growing up. So he's trying to figure out and navigate these lines, on his own. And I'm piecing what it is to be a male figure, piecing what it is to be a leader when I've never seen a consistent leader in a household, and so I'm trying to figure out who I am and in the process be a leader and a man, in my household and, teach my kids the things that they need. And so this is why it's important to have conversations like this, because there's so many men trying to figure out and they are faking it till they make it. They really are. I grew up in the 80s. It was just an absentees of fathers. It just what it was. It is what it is. And then you had certain people that came in. I have a stepfather. He was there. He was supportive. He did what it is that he needed to do. But at that time, I still yearned to have the love of my father. I was very fortunate that in the latter years of my life, and it took a lot of faith, it took a lot of forgiveness on my part to allow this person to come in, and we established such a great bond before, my father passed, and he got a chance to see my kids, and he got a chance to see, bond with his grandkids, bond with my wife, and I was grateful, and I was so grateful that God gave me that second chance, when there's so many people out there that don't get it. So, and I didn't take it for granted, but I did have to learn to have a sense of forgiveness. That being said, there's so many men that are out there that are struggling. They're struggling trying to figure this out. And they are told to carry the burdens of the world on their shoulders and to do it with a smile. And then they come back home. And in some cases, it's not all the cases, they come back home and then, they're met with, well, how come you didn't do this? Or you're this, or you're that, or why are you expressing the emotion? Why are you sad? Man, you better man up. And these are coming from people who never had a positive role model, a male figure in their lives. And they're telling you how to be a man when they've never seen it. We all figuring this stuff out. What I'm essentially saying is we need to learn to give people grace. We need to be able to give this person grace. He may not be able to figure it out, but if you can be with him and can help him and be a helpmate with him, you guys can figure it out together. You know what I mean? Like, my wife has showed me so many things as to how to love her effectively, which was like, oh, I thought I was doing that. No, I definitely was not. And I felt like since we started to date, since we started to court, and then we, matured through this process, she can attest, I have matured a lot as a husband and matured a lot as a partner and matured a lot as a companion and just matured because a lot of times I used to be like, okay, well, if I make money, that should be enough. You should be thankful. Meanwhile, she up here juggling the household like, hey, brother, can you help me out?
I am outnumbered.
But it's that desire for me to want to be the best version of myself, not only for me, but for my wife. She deserves to have a person who she can depend on and who can lead and guide her. And if I am incapable of leading her, then she deserves to have a person who's like, look, I'm trying to figure it out, but we can figure it out together. And so that's what I'm saying. That, but I think that needs to be reciprocated on both parts. Because my wife does so much stuff. It is hard. It is hard to be a wife and a mother and a working professional and a person who's going to school and a person who's a caretaker and a person who's being pulled from every which way, and then expect her to still have the energy and the capability to want to love on me at the end of the day. Excuse me. She's exhausted, and it's recognizing that stuff. And there's days I'm successful in it, and there's days that I'm not. And there's days it crushes me when my wife is broken because her cup is so depleted. It is crushing. And I don't want that for her. And I want her to feel like when she comes home that she is loved on, and she is not like the world has already taken her energy. So when she comes home, she shouldn't be, siphoned off when she gets through these doors, and so I feel like that is my job and my responsibility to alleviate that, and so I say all that just to say, yes, it's important to do that for on the male side, but we also need to be understanding, when it comes to your wife as well. So
Well, I mean, I just want to say that you do a really good job. I think, there's a lot of there's a lot of growth
Yes,
still, but
definitely.
I think where you excel at, I need help with. And what I excel at, you can, use some help with.
Yeah.
And I think with my trauma, like I've learned to just push and push and push and push and keep going. And for me, it's like handling this, go to this, get this, take that to do. And so I've learned to juggle. And, I've been a mom since I was 17,
Yeah.
and um, I have a lot of experience with it. And I think that, I had to stop expecting you to do certain things because you were new to this and it was unfair. But you act so like you know what you're doing so many times, so much of out of the day you do really well. But I do want to go back to something you said that I just want to touch base on. And you said that I want to be the man that my wife needs, and for me, I want you to be the man you need to be, because my faith reminds me that will be blended together. And I never want you to not grow and not be the man you've always dreamed of being because you're worried about how I'm going to handle it. Like, I'll be fine. I want you to be your best authentic life, whatever that is. I just, you have no other way than to have me in it. So you can't say
I'm not going nowhere.
my best authentic life is with you away, because probably not going to happen. But another thing I wanted to touch base with on is with the kids, because you'll express to them like, this is not something you need to cry about, or this is something you should be crying about, or I understand. And then I come in and I teach them the coping skills, right? How to regulate and how to emotionally express themselves in a healthy manner, because it doesn't necessarily have to be tears all the time. It could just be like, actually, I'm bored, or I'm thirsty, or because with kids, it's I'm bored, I'm hungry. Those are the only two things they can say that they're dealing with, but it could be so much more, right? And so expressing themselves in that way, and I think that's why it was so interesting with when Neo came in and he was like, I feel very judged, because those are the words we taught him, right?
Yeah.
And so I did want to touch base on that. And the last thing is I wanted to say that the space to allow growth is not easy for women either, right?
Yeah.
Because we're carrying so many other people's emotions. And I had to learn to, where am I going to spend my energy? And I noticed like I would get texts from friends and they would open conversation or dialogue, like, how you doing? And then I would ask them how they were doing. And then boom, they were nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you just ended the conversation. Then they would start again, like maybe 2 months later on the same conversation. I was like, nah, man, I ain't got time for this. You just drop and leave. I don't care if you have 200 kids.
Yeah.
It's politeness, It's like, what is that called? Like etiquette, right? You don't just begin a conversation and you end it. Or I used to have a friend that I ran back and forth for. Like, you needed something, I was there. You never had to worry about anything, even to the detriment of my own family. I ran back and forth for you and your family. Whatever you needed, I was there. And I couldn't. And it was like I wasn't. And then I realized I could help you, and you will never realize how much this is sacrificing my time, my family, my energy, my health.
Yeah.
And I had to pull away. And what happens? I become the bad friend.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Like, you have your story and I have mine. The difference is I have no problem pulling covers.
Yeah.
I will pull your covers.
Yeah.
Everybody will know the truth. But for what? I feel like that was a sign and that was a blessing. God had me there for a season. God had this friend for me for a season. God had this family member for me for a season. And it was, even if it meant taking all my energy.
Yeah.
Right? I learned and I moved on. And so when I come home, you are so amazing to make sure that this is a safe space for all of us. And there was a season, and it felt like multiple seasons. I mean, years that we were struggling with the older boys. And I was doing everything I could to get them better. You know, whatever I could do, I would do it. And at one point I was like, you are grown.
Yeah.
You can leave. Like, I don't need to keep doing this. Like, it's bye.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, you know, you just jumped into protective mode where you were like, baby, you're tired.
Yeah.
You need to take a nap.
Yeah.
And the one thing Sean said was, I do not want my sons in the street. I want my sons home. And whatever I need to do to make sure that this home keeps the peace and remains peaceful for them to come, even when they're not peaceful.
Yeah.
I will make sure it happens. And he was absolutely right. We had to keep the peace because their first interaction with God was through us, right? So he kept that. In that moment, I could only give 10%. And Sean said, I will give the rest. You go sleep. Yeah. And I slept. And we came back and everything was copacetic. Everything was fine. I mean, you know, it didn't resolve the issue, but it made things feel a little more comfortable. Yeah. Like we were a family again. And, you know, just so there's context, like I didn't have a family either. Yeah. You know, and you know, we don't try to put our business out there to maintain the integrity of our family members, but I have a very toxic relationship with my siblings and I don't have a father. I never had a father. And, you know, the one I had was horrible. And so, you know, we were removed from him young, my sister and I, and the relationship I have with my grandmother and my mother is up and down constantly. I don't, you know, I'm not sure why, but that's what it is. But I know that God, and if it wasn't for the grace of our mentors, like, you know, Auntie Gail and Andrea and, you know, God and Marcus, you know, I don't think we would be where we're at because, you know, I take care of your mom and I take care of my mom and I take care of my grandma and I make sure everybody's bills are paid. I make sure everybody is okay. I make sure that they're in a safe space. I make sure that they have a home. I make sure that even when they're cussing me out, you know, and I'm just like,
which doesn't feel
whatever.
Good.
It doesn't feel good. You know, it's not the first time I've been cussed out. It's not going to be the last. I mean, I've been cussed out by
all walks
friends,
of life,
you know?
all walks of life at this point. From and kids to seniors.
You know? I stay quiet because I'm like, you don't deserve the wrath that I can give you. Number one. Number two, you don't face me to that point where I got to lose my cool, you know, like whatever. But I still do it. And people ask me all the time, how do you do it? Like, I would have cut this person off or this or that or whatever. And it's God. Yeah. I don't have any other explanation other than it's God because and you too, like even there's days where I'm like, I'm not paying that bill. Yeah. Forget that. And then, you know, we have to sit, well, if we don't pay this bill, then this won't get paid and then this won't get paid. And I'm like, never mind. Yeah. we'll pay it because I don't want them back in my house.
It's definitely, this is why it's important, you know, if you do have faith, but this is what it is. It's literally God's grace on the situation, right? It takes a lot of patience and understanding to be able to navigate, but we're all human and we all have feelings. And we all have things that we're doing. And it's nothing worse than when you are giving your all to help somebody and then that person is either ungrateful, unappreciative, or feels entitled that you're supposed to do that.
Or repeats a story, this narrative that nobody's out there to helping them. Yeah. Or they don't have this or they don't have that. At some point, like a person who is there for you and trying to do their best to be your support person gets exhausted. Yeah. You know, you're only human.
Yeah. And you have to, at that point, you have to start setting up boundaries. Because if you're unhealthy mentally and emotionally, you're unhealthy, then you won't be any benefit to anybody, right? So you have to take care of yourself and you have to make sure that you're okay and you have to make sure that you're taken care of. And so having, you know, girls trips or having, you know, time where you're just like, hey, I just need a time for myself is so important. It is so important because you're on E. And so
But just for a girl's trip, even a man's trip, it's not to run away from a problem.
No, it's not.
It's to refuel.
Yes.
And it has to be intentional because I used to go on girls trips a lot, and then I would come home just as exhausted as when I left.
Yeah.
And now I don't do as many girls trips because I don't really have time, but I do have to be at school for 10 days out of the semester. So in the fall, August, I'll be in Pasadena. And then again in January, I'm in Pasadena. And those times I started inviting friends with me, and we refuel each other. Like we're intentional in our time together. And then you meet me out there and we're just having a blast. And then we're like, okay, party's over. Got to go back home. Yeah. And I noticed this repetitive way about me that, like, when we would go on trips with our friends and when we would get trips with the kids. And I remember talking to one of my best friends, Gabby, and on the last day of our vacations, I would just shut down. Because I knew I had to go back to that routine. I don't want to say chaos, but it felt like chaos. No, right?
It was. It was chaos.
And it took me a minute to really dissect, like, what was that? Yeah. And I remember, like, in those times, because I was raised with my grandma, and I started to reflect, and this is going to be revelation because I never even told you this, but I started to remember that when my grandma would allow my sister and I to see my mom, she would take us to Salinas and drop us off. It was a little town out, outside of Monterey. And my mom was living there at the time. And she would take us, and my mom wouldn't bring us back to San Jose. She would put us on the Greyhound. And it was my sister and I. And my sister's so funny. She would be like, peace, bye. And I would just cry. I would sob because
you just wanted to be with your mom. Yeah.
One, I knew what I was going back to. I didn't want to go back. And two, I loved my mom so much. I loved her, so I just didn't understand why we couldn't be with her.
Yeah.
And now, I'm too grown to feel like that. But I do feel sometimes when I come home, I feel so inadequate because I can't calm anybody down sometimes, and it's mainly like the caretaking, like taking care of our elderly parents has been so difficult and challenging. It has been downright difficult. And we try to use words like challenging. We have our hard days and our good days, but this has been really difficult.
Yeah.
And we don't tell people everything we do. And they assume that we're not doing certain things.
Yeah.
And the hard thing, I think, is both are diagnosed with a brain disease where they can't remember certain things. So they're telling people they're not doing this and they're not doing that. And it's like, they can't even tell them what we are doing.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming because the things we do.
And then also it's, we also have, little ones, we have older ones, we have a life of our own, right? And we're trying to navigate it and we're trying to do all this stuff. And adulting at this level is hard, and caretaking is extremely difficult. It kind of sucks to get old. It really does, because it feels like at that time you're discarded. But I think it also, a lot of it has to do with the way you live. Yeah. And the way you live your life. So it's not all just you get old and people don't care. That's not, it's the way you live your life, and it's the impact, whether positive or negative, that you made on people. So, those are things to consider, but it is a heavy burden to be able to do that and be able to manage it to the best of your abilities. And it's not that we don't appreciate it. Sometimes God gives you the ability to be able to do it, but it's definitely, emotionally and mentally draining, to be able to do that and be a caretaker and do all that stuff. So, sometimes we want people to, have a little empathy or grace. Sometimes we just want people to, say, hey, how you doing? Like, how you
being an introduction to tell me how you're actually doing.
It's like, I'm like, if I have a conversation with somebody and be like, hey man, they ask how you doing. I'm like, I'm doing all right. I'm kind of struggling. Okay, that's good, man. And then
check this out.
They start telling you, and you're like, okay. And so to kind of piggyback to what I was saying before about how I have this thing where I kind of just shut it off and I just isolate. To me, if you're opening up a conversation, you're asking me how I'm doing, and then you start off by just talking about yourself, then to me, it's not a genuine conversation, not authentic conversation. You don't really care. So what I do is I kind of cut it off. I'm emotional. I'm like, you don't care about my feelings and you don't care about me emotionally. And so you only care about what you can get from the situation, right? And so
but that's okay because we've realized that, right? And that's why we're such a team, because we realize like.
But let me interject, because this is something that it bothers me, is because we are so much givers, and we give our time, we give our talent, we give our efforts, we give all that stuff, that there's sometimes that you want to be replenished, and sometimes you want people to authentically care about how you doing. Don't call me or text me about how you doing and then give me an assignment or tell me, hey, I need you, girl, I need you for this, or I need you for that.
That's so funny, because there's some people I don't hear from them. I only see a, hey, how you doing? And then I get a text of, oh, my child needs this donation, or my child needs this, or my work is asking for this, or hey, remember you said you were hiring at your job, or is the county working? Is the county hiring, or can I put you down as a reference? It's never like, I don't know. It just, I think about like family members who know that we're taking care of their family members as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I like coffee. I see it all over it. And, I'm not on social media like that, because I know that pisses people off that I'm not like liking stuff, because my social media etiquette is really bad, because I just don't have time. And I really am. I don't care, but I'm learning and I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
And because I lack in that, we were looking for a social media manager. So if anybody wants to get a job in me, social, holla at your girl. But no, so that is hurtful.
It's very hurtful.
That it feels like sometimes like I'm only good enough to be reached out for this, and that. And then, you're taking care. Oh, thank you so much for taking care of our family member. And I'm like, oh, I want a Starbucks. Like I want, and I don't know. And it's petty, maybe to some. But I mean, I feel like that's engagement. I feel like that's true, like authentic care.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we're human.
Yeah, exactly.
We're human. Like, I can, like, don't get it twisted about, okay, this is your title, or you're this, or you're this, or you're no, I am human at the end of the day. I have emotions, I have feelings. And if I feel that my time and my talent is being mismanaged and misused, then it's going to really make me upset, because those are the one things that I can't get back. My time, I can't get back. So if my time is, if you genuinely care and you genuinely want to have a relationship, then we could do this, and we can converse and we could do all that stuff. But if not, if you just calling just to call, and just be like, hey, I'm just calling to call, and it is what it is. But I at this point in my life, I want genuine relationships. Like, I don't have time for the pettiness. I don't have time for the BS. No, I'm too busy trying to make. It's too short. I'm too busy trying to make moves. I'm too busy trying to do things and go places. And I want you, if you can be on this ride, or you can be on this journey with me, that's great. But sometimes the air is too thin up there, and I understand people are gonna fall off. It is what it is. But I'm looking for authentic, genuine people
who can handle
it. Who can handle it, right? And I'm gonna tell you right now, we're the type of people that, we are supportive. We care. We can do this. We are.
Friends. We are friends. No.
that's just what it is. But sometimes, there's situations where, it's good to just kind of check in on each other. Like, sometimes I just, like, I'll talk with some of my friends, and, I'm like, oh, how was your weekend? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's good. I did X, Y, and Z. And so my next question is, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. And then I'll ask them again, no, brother, how are you doing? Like, what's going on with you? How do you feel? Like, and I genuinely want to know it. I'm not just saying, oh yeah, I went through it. No, I want to know how you feel, especially from a male perspective, because we don't get asked that question. We don't get asked about how you feel. What are you going through? What are you stressed out about? What is keeping you up at night?
Yeah.
These are the things that are, and then sometimes you want that to be reciprocated.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go and people are like, how you doing? Oh, good. That's fine. Not knowing that I haven't slept because I've been up doing this homework assignment. And, I'm trying to, and I'm doing this for a reason. And then I got all this other stuff that I need to do. So, that's what we're looking for. At least for me, I don't have time for, to vet people to do that. I have like a small circle. I have real ones around me.
Yeah.
I have real ones, people who have been there, through thick and thin, people who can make the journey. And that's what I wanted to be surround me. So, and it's the same thing with my wife. We got people that, just have been there through the process, and that's what I'm looking for. Like, that's what I want in my life. I don't want fluff. If that's what you about is fluff, and you about titles and you about all that other stuff, God bless you. I wish you the best, but I don't have time for that. I'm looking for people who can go on this journey with me and be there and be a part of it. I want people to be a part of it, but I just don't have time for the BS.
Yeah. You're right, because I think about, like, there's something that people say when when we discuss, like, where we're brought up, and when you're brought up in the hood, and then when you're brought up, like, in a different way, right? And the hood teaches you, like, structure. That's what I think, like the non-negotiables, right?
Yeah.
And for me, like, my friendships are from years, like. There's one, my comadre, I've known her since I was in 4th grade, like, years. And then there's the new ones that I thought were going to be forever. And I started noticing that when I put boundaries, man, I pissed them off, And now, the relationship has shifted in a way. And for me, I'm like, for me, my friendships never shift, because there's always something that happened during our relationship that could never sway my love for you, right? And I mean, I've been with friendships where I've watched the saddest moments. I've been a part of it. I've been there, and there's multiple friends, not that just one. And that is, to me, like, you can never do anything for me to go away, because we were a part of this together.
Yeah.
And, like, I had a best friend where, if it wasn't for her telling me she was so connected with not just Neo and Jill, but she was connected with all 4 of my kids. So connected that she told me, like, I have a bad feeling about this child, and I need you to watch 13 Reasons Why, because I have a bad feeling. And that's how connected. And she was on the dot. And because of that, I was like, she could do no wrong. There is nothing you could do to piss me off so much that I would disconnect from our relationship, other than putting hands on my child or trying to make a move on my man. Then that's it. You could even put hands on my mom, and no, just kidding. No, that's another non-negotiable. But for real, it's like, don't put hands on my children, and that's my man. Like,
yeah,
that's a non-negotiable, right? There is nothing. But then I saw, like, if I tiptoed in the wrong way, you're ready to cut ties. So I said, look, here's the ties. You don't even got to cut them. It's a wrap. I don't need to be walking around wondering if your friendship is as valuable to you as it is to me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm too grown for that. You're too grown for that.
Mm-hmm.
If the oxygen is too thin up here, then it is what it is. Does it hurt? A lot. Because I don't create friendships to just create friendships. I make you family, because that's what they taught us. You know what I mean? You're family. Like, I will always be there for you, but it doesn't always have to be like that. And that's okay too. And that's the same for you. Like, if, and for me, I've learned, like, if you're not going to ask me genuinely how I'm doing, that's okay.
Yeah.
We can still talk about you. That's fine. I probably am too awkward anyways to tell you how I'm feeling. I'm so awkward when it comes to stuff like that. But I get it, and that's where you come in, when you're like, nah, no, babe, they're not going to ask you how they're doing. Nope. Cut them off.
Cut them off. I mean, it may not even be that
yeah,
that serious.
It doesn't have to be that serious.
But you need, like, everybody has that level of vulnerability where you just want somebody, because you're so drained and you've been giving your all. You just want somebody to recognize you, to see you. Yes, I know God sees you, and God is always there. And that's the one thing that's so good, is to know that He sees you in every situation. But sometimes you just want, I want somebody to reach out. And the good thing about it is, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. And I feel like He reveals that stuff to you. But yeah, we're all human. Like, we all have moments of vulnerability. We all have those moments where we want somebody, like, hey man, how you doing? Or hey sis, how you doing? Like, seriously, like, I haven't seen you. I want to reconnect, and I want to like really figure out how you doing. And that stuff is important. Like, we need that. We need to have that connection. Just as human beings, you need to have that connection. And so, I think that's the thing now, as I'm getting older and much wiser, I realize, like, the company you keep is important. And I just want to keep people who, I know the type of friend that I am. And I can work on certain issues, but I know that I'm a good friend. And I know that I care about my friendships. Both my friendships are family. So when you become a confidant, it's like you are family to me. And so I care about you and I care about your well-being. I genuinely care about your well-being and I want you to be okay. And I want, if you feel like you can talk to me and I can be a safe space, then I want that too. I don't have to, you don't have to know how I'm doing or what I'm going through. I want you to be able to hear you out, because sometimes that's what they need. But a friendship, to me, a true, genuine friendship is they can reciprocate that. And that's just what you want. You just want that connection. And so, I'm fortunate enough that we do have some people who are in our lives that are like that and that we can go to. And I'm grateful for that, and I appreciate that, so that's why, we're just like on this journey, we're just focused.
Yeah.
And, that's the big thing.
Yeah, we're very blessed. We're very blessed, babe. We have great, and a shout out to my sister-in-laws too, because man, they love them some Sean.
They're great.
They adore their brother, and they adore all of us. But the way that I see how they look at their little brother, it's just so cute, and I love that, because my hope for this 2024 is that my husband sees his value and sees how much we adore him, and I adore my husband. Like, I just look at you and I'm like, that's my man, and I'm so thankful that you can share your sister-in-law, like your sisters, with me. And I'm so thankful for
I'm thankful they like you.
for Stacy and Lynn, because they're phenomenal. And Billy makes me laugh. Like, he's hilarious. And I'm so thankful for your Auntie Gail, because she always took me in and was like, oh girl, she's just so sweet. And I thank you for sharing your family with me and your friends, because your friends are pretty dope too. So I thank you for being so vulnerable and talking. And I know that we want to do a brother circle and a sister circle and talk about female male thoughts separately and learn, so that we can learn about how we can connect on a deeper level, authentic level. So I'm looking forward to that. But I do want to thank you, honey, and thank you, audience, for taking the time to hang out with us. And like we mentioned before, if you have any questions or you want a topic,
we want to cover a specific topic.
Communicate it on this podcast. Drop us a line. Thank you for everyone who has dropped a line and reached out to us. We had some good feedback, and we had some, some other. Well, no, they were all good, but people got mad at us because we don't have them on the podcast.
Yeah,
but we're not there yet. We're almost there. We're getting guests. We have to do our guest lineup. But anyway, so we just want to take this opportunity to thank you. Happy holidays. All the holidays that are spent together with family, and those who do not celebrate, we thank you for participating as well. And we send you blessings and love and togetherness and health and healing in every aspect. And again, reach out if you have any questions. And we thank you. And again, that number, if you do feel a need to talk with someone, or there's a crisis line that you can contact, and that is 988 from your phone. You just dial 988 and you will have the crisis line available to you. All right,
talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with it by yourself.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Connection is key. Connection is key. And that's what the misconception, a lot of people say, shift your thoughts and shift this and do this. And who cares what people think? And that's not necessarily true. Mm. It hurts, but you can get through it. And you will get through it.
You will get through it. Yeah.
Amen. Okay, baby. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, whenever you're listening. All right. Peace.
Peace.